So I'm about halfway through Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I had to split this one in two because this is such a massive book. Also, it is naturally split into two different volumes, so this is volume one. Now, this is supposed to be one of the greatest novels ever written, a classic piece of literature, so this video is just going to be my first thoughts and impressions and what I thought, what I got from it, because there's no way I can sort of expand upon what I'm sure countless other people have said and written about this book. So it was published in the 1870s in Russia. Leo Tolstoy's Russian, and it takes place in that sort of time period in Imperial Russia, following a group of aristocrats. So there's many different characters, but I think there's only 7 that you really have to remember, and you can even think of it as 3 different couples and then 1 interloper. So it's not that hard to follow. It does really give me soap opera vibes. It was published in different parts, so I'm not going to say each part is episodic, but I imagine at the time these parts coming out would have sort of fulfilled the same role that soap operas do nowadays. Although in terms of quality, I would not say that this is as poor as a soap opera is. I'd say this is so much more well written. I mean, it is incredibly well written. Even this translation I have, which I don't know if it's a great translation or not, but it is really well written. Like, getting into it, I pictured in my mind sort of 19th century literature is very sort of reserved and very proper, but this it felt really real. His descriptions of the characters' feelings and their thoughts and even their actions. The little things they'll do. They'll touch their hand to this way and lift this and move that and I don't know. It there's a level of realism. It's so. Yeah, it's so real. The plot's not anything amazing. I mean, it is kind of, for its time, maybe it was, but like I said, it feels like a soap opera. But it's probably more that soap operas have sort of taken everything from books like this, or maybe just this book, and have tropified. Is that a word? Turned everything in it into an overdone trope. So our very first scene is our storyline or tiny little part of the book is interesting, because I think that works as sort of a not a microcosm, maybe foreshadowing, but it's sort of in miniature the main plot of at least this first volume that I've read. So it is this wealthy aristocrat guy. I shouldn't say wealthy because they're not all necessarily wealthy, but he's cheating on his wife with one of the governesses of his children, the French one. And his wife is totally distraught, like, my husband's cheating on me. Naturally, I mean, you would be. But her sister-in-law, the husband's sister, comes over, Anna, the titular Anna Karenina, and sort of smooths things over and says, like, look, these things happen. Think of the children, like, forgive him, forget, move on. It's going to be okay. And sort of the wife calms down and they move on. And that's just sort of the opening sequence that is very much what the broader story will all be about. Not consequences of this, but sort of this same thing, only writ large. Not really, but hopefully you know what I mean. But I should talk about the characters. So we have this first couple, Stephen Oblonsky and his wife Dolly Oblonsky, who had been a Sherbatsky. So Dolly and I'll call them Oblonsky and Dolly. So Oblonsky's the one who's cheating on his wife Dolly, or he cheats on his wife with this governess. And like I said, they sort of forget and move on, but the relationship is still fairly strained. And by the end of this volume, there's comments made by Oblonsky about this ballerina, which his wife seems to not be happy about, and also she makes comments about it. And it seems like he's still cheating on her, but with other women. So he's sort of a very gregarious, extroverted, outgoing person who's always going around. He knows everyone knows him. Doesn't matter the class. He'll chat to everyone and sleep with not anyone, but he sleeps around. So that's our first couple. The next couple would be the sister, Anna Karenina, the sister of Oblonsky, and her husband, we'll just call him Karenin. I think his first name's Alexis Alexandrovich Karenin. So Anna Karenina, she's the titular character. She is early 30s, a bit younger than Oblonsky, her brother. She is apparently gorgeous. She's got a son, Sereza, which is a really cool name. But her relationship with her husband is not one of love. Her husband is 20 years older than her, so he's in his 50s. And Karenin, her husband, is very much, he cares about propriety and his sort of own image. He seems quite conservative and sort of strict and worried about structure and appearance and society. And he's sort of high up in society. He's got a job that's even higher than Oblonsky's in the government. He seems kind of cold too until the very end of this volume. So their relationship is not one of love. They don't love each other. There's no love there. Whereas with Oblonsky and his wife Dolly, even though he's cheating on her, there is some sort of love going on there. The next couple, and I'll make it a throuple. The other three characters are not actually a couple throughout this volume. There is Kitty Sherbatsky, which is Dolly's sister. So Dolly is Oblonsky's wife. Oblonsky's wife Dolly, she has a little sister called Kitty. So she's only 18. She's sort of just getting out there and looking for a husband and has a couple suitors. One of her suitors is this guy Levin. So Levin, he's one of the aristos, but he lives in the countryside and does farming. Now, when I say he's a farmer, he's not like what you think of as a farmer. He owns tons of land and he hires tons of people to run this farm, whereas he sort of manages it and does farming stuff. He's also a bit of a philosopher, I'd say. So a lot of this book, he is off on his farm, and there's like a whole part where it's like one of the there's 4 or 5 parts to this section. One of the parts is basically just him at his family home, trying to figure out how to make his farm more profitable. And there's all kinds of talk in this book about the difference between Europe, which is quite modern at this time, and Russia, which has just sort of eliminated serfdom, and they're trying to modernize. They have trains and railways, but they've still got a long way to go. And so this Levin guy, he's trying to figure out how can he make his farm more productive. His main issue seems to be all of the laborers who are lazy. They don't do things properly. He has all these ideas, these innovative ideas that he wants to do and change to make his farm more productive, but the workers, they don't want to implement it. They're like, we'll just do it the way we always did. And he gets frustrated with that. He's not a conservative. I'd say he's more of a reactionary. He's definitely not a liberal either. There's a lot of talk in this about economics and communism and stuff, which is really interesting considering what happens to Russia sort of 40 years after this was published. Levin ends up sort of coming up with this new form of farming that he's writing a book about, and he wants to sort of revolutionize things. And it's sort of an in-between between sort of serfdom and communism, where he's trying to find this middle ground where he's sort of bringing the workers in and that they're getting a piece of the profits and they have co-ownership of the different sections of his farm. And so that will sort of encourage them to work harder and to do things correctly in the right way, because the more the farm benefits, the more they'll benefit. Anyways, he goes on and philosophizes about all this. So I put him in with Kitty because he and Kitty were sort of not dating but courting each other. Levin is head over heels in love with Kitty. He wants to marry her. Kitty's father wants Levin to marry her. He is like early 30s. I think he's probably around the same age as Anna, so he's quite a bit older than Kitty, but that doesn't really matter. But enter the problem child of this book, Vronsky. So that we have another character called Count Vronsky, who is sort of mid to late 20s. He is very well-to-do, very handsome. He's in the military. He's sort of the golden boy. He's got everything going for him, and he's also courting Kitty. And Kitty's mother is trying to push her towards Count Vronsky. She's thinking, this Vronsky guy, it's going to be great. And Kitty kind of is feeling the same way. So Levin turns up and he proposes to marry Kitty, and she turns him down, just straight up turns him down, and at a dinner party. And then enter Vronsky, and then poor Levin has to sit at this dinner party with Vronsky and Kitty sort of flirting with each other, while like right after he was turned down by her, and this poor guy. So that's when he goes off to the farm and sort of stays there and spends the rest of this volume at this farm. So it seems like Vronsky and Kitty are getting on great. However, Anna comes in to, I don't know if it's this party or at some point, Anna and Vronsky meet, and it's sort of love at first sight. Even though Anna's married and Vronsky's sort of not betrothed to Kitty, but he's been leading her on that they're going to get married. Although Vronsky himself says that he doesn't ever think about marrying Kitty. He's just sort of having fun, and which makes him an awful person. Anyways, so Vronsky starts hanging around with Anna quite a bit, and this gets back to Kitty and her family, and she's brokenhearted. She turned down this guy who loves her for this other guy who's then run off with a married woman. So Kitty, they say that she's ill. She's just suffering from heartbreak and maybe some sort of mental illness of some sort. Not chronic, but just from this experience. So they go off to Germany for a bit to recover, and she meets this girl, Franca, I think her name was, who's really cute. And it's interesting, the language in this is use words like Kitty is infatuated with Franca or in love with Franca, and she wants to kiss Franca and spend time with Franca, which written in any other time period, it would be taken as a romantic love. It's not, or at least I would say it's not. So over the course of these 430 pages, Kitty sort of calms down and realizes like this Vronsky guy's trouble, whatever, and then comes back to Russia. I think they're in Moscow. Most of this book takes place in either Moscow or Petersburg. And at the end of this volume, Levin and Kitty meet up again, and this whole time Levin's been like, no, I'm not going to be married. I'm not going to have kids. I wanted that so much, but it's just my time has passed. She turned me down. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm focusing on my farm. And he's got a couple brothers, and one of his brothers is dying. And so then he starts thinking about death and gets really morbid and depressed. But at the end of this volume, he gets sort of, not forced into, but he ends up at a dinner party, one of the Blonsky's dinner parties, and the Blonsky's sister-in-law, Kitty, is there. And so Kitty and Levin meet for the first time since she turned him down. And they have this like cute little thing where it's awkward, but they start talking, and they realize that he tried to destroy those feelings, but of course he's still in love with her, and she realizes that she's always loved him, and sort of she's really young and thinking that turning him down for Vronsky was a mistake, and so in the end of it they get back together, and Levin's just ecstatic, and he's like, we'll get married today, we'll get married tomorrow, like let's just do it, and super excited. There's one sort of strange thing where Levin admits that he has two sort of things he has to tell Kitty before they get married. One of them is that he's agnostic, which she's religious, but she doesn't really care. But the other one seems to be, now it doesn't outright say it because it's a 19th century novel, but it seems to be that Levin has slept around, or that he's slept with other women at some point. Which just devastates Kitty, but they sort of get over it and move on. But I thought it was interesting that the author even put that in the book, because it seems like such a small thing. But this whole novel, as far as I can tell, is about adultery or that. So that was sort of a micro, not that he was cheating on her, because they were not ever together. I mean, this was probably when she was a child that he did this, but it is kind of seen as a betrayal for her that he had someone before her, even though chronologically they weren't together until now at the end of this volume. So the other main storyline is, of course, Vronsky and Anna Karenina. So she at first is like attracted to him, but she's like, I'm married, I'm not gonna like fool around. He, of course, is just pursuing her, and everyone sort of knows about it, but they're all like, ooh, drama, this is cool, like let's just let this happen. And her husband Karenin sort of suspects it, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna, like, my wife would never do such a thing, I'm not gonna believe it. But it all comes to a head when she gets pregnant, which that's gonna happen, and with Vronsky's child. At this point, Vronsky's like, he even admits it in one part where he's like, do I really love her? Like, his love for her sort of cooling down. which Vronsky's an awful person. I also think Anna's an awful person. And yeah, it all comes to a head with Anna just feeling like she hates her husband, Karenin. She hates him, she loathes him, she despises him. But he's sort of holding their son hostage. She adores her son and will do anything. Will chooses him even over Vronsky, because Vronsky's like, run away with me, get like leave your husband and come with me. She's like, I can't because of my son. And when Karenin, she finally admits everything to her husband, and Karenin, her husband, he's not upset that his wife is cheating on him. He's more upset about what will people think of me, like my honor as a man in society will be ruined, like what can I do. And he finally comes to the conclusion that I will have to divorce, and it's just, to him, divorce is something awful, and he can't believe he has to do it. Then he says to Anna, he's like, look, stop seeing this man. We'll sort of push it all under the rug. Do not let him into my house, and we'll just sort of go on as usual. But at one point, she invites Vronsky to her house. He bumps into Karenin there, and then Karenin's like, that's it. I gave you a chance. Sorry, but I'm taking the kid, and we're kicking you out. And she's just like, no, this is horrible, I'm going to die. And she starts having dreams that she's going to die in childbirth. And I actually thought she was going to die, which I thought, well, how can she die halfway through this book? But she gives birth, and she gets super, super sick, and it does seem like she's going to die. And Vronsky's there, and Karenin's there, and at this point, Karenin's sort of, he very much changes. He, seeing his dying wife, and he's before he meets her, he's like, oh, she's dying. Well, actually, that will solve a lot of problems if she dies. Then I won't have to worry about divorce or this scandal or anything. But seeing her on her deathbed, he like does a 180 and he forgives her, and he forgives Count Vronsky, and he's like, I can't divorce her and send her out. Like, that would destroy her. What would she do? Like, even if she went with Vronsky, what if Vronsky dumps her and then she has to go with someone else? He totally flips his opinion around. And Vronsky, seeing the husband that he has been sort of, he's been sleeping with this man's wife, seeing the husband forgive and forget and all the emotions and everything, Vronsky's and Anna, his love, dying, Vronsky's very shaken by this, and so he tries to kill himself. So I thought we're going to have sort of a Romeo and Juliet situation where they both die. But he shoots himself, but he sort of misses any major organs and actually pulls through and survives. And at this point, Anna's sort of gone back to her husband, or she's sort of seen how her husband's changed, and so seems like she wants to be with him, but that could just be because she thought she was dying, so that when she actually gets better, Vronsky, who's also healing, is going to leave town. He's like, I'm done with all this, I need to get out of here, but I'd like to meet Anna one last time. And Karenin, he's like, it's up to you, Anna. I'm not going to say you can't. You make the decision. And at first she's like, no, I won't see him because I know that's what you want. But she ends up changing her mind, and because of Oblonsky, who shows up, and he tries to fix the solution by saying, you guys need to get divorced. Like, you do not love each other. Leave. So she admits Vronsky. Vronsky rushes up to her and is kissing her, and they're so in love. And because of what Oblonsky had said to Karenin, he agrees to a divorce. And so Anna and Vronsky are going to run off together. And so that's what they do. They leave. They don't even get the divorce. She denies the divorce because to her it was like too much. Her husband was he was too nice of a guy trying to do this, and she couldn't stand accepting this sort of gift of divorce from him, and so she just flees without taking the divorce. I'm not sure what happens to the son. I'm not sure if she takes the son with her or not. I don't think she does. No, she doesn't. She leaves her son. So she's finally sort of gotten over that and has fled with Vronsky. Presumably they took the daughter that she had with them. I don't know, we'll find out. But that's how it ends. And it does sort of feel like it could be an ending. So we get the happy Kitty and Levin back together like soulmates. We've got Anna running off with Vronsky, leaving her husband Karenin and her son, and we have Dolly and Oblonsky, who are in a shaky marriage, but they're still together. So the only difference between the adultery of Oblonsky and the adultery of Anna is which are their brother and sister. Maybe it runs in the family. Anna does it for love. Oblonsky does it for lust, I would say. So where's the story going from here? Great question. I'd like to see a time skip, like 10 or 15 years, and sort of see, or even 20 years, and see sort of Anna's son and daughter growing up, or maybe Oblonsky's children growing up and then seeing what has become of their parents and their relationships. Maybe Kitty and Levin have children. I don't think we're going to see that though. We'll probably just continue on. Levin and Kitty will probably get married and have kids. Hopefully they'll live happily ever after, but we've got still half the book yet, so maybe something will go wrong with them. Maybe they'll fall out of love. Maybe one of them will die. I mean, it's Russian literature. They have to die at some point. I could see the Vronsky-Anna situation getting even worse, with maybe Vronsky falling out of love with her, because it seemed at one point that he didn't actually love her, and like he kind of, not playboy vibes, but he was stringing Kitty along, and he does seem truly in love with Anna, but then he said that his feelings were cooling, and so I could see that whole situation breaking apart, and maybe because her husband seems like such a forgiving guy, taking her back at the end of this. Maybe Oblonsky and Dolly will finally get divorced, because Oblonsky will probably just keep sleeping around. I don't know. We'll see. So that was the first volume of 2, halfway through Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy.